Hi there! My name is Justina and I have just recently started my new YouTube channel called Glow Mama Prague. So far I have recorded only one video where I was talking about what's in my baby's hospital bag, and this time around, if my baby boy Charlie, who is swinging just by the side of my couch, will allow me, I would like to share with you guys my birthing story here in Prague. So to start with, perhaps I should give a little bit more of background about myself. So as I mentioned, my name is Justina. Originally I came from Lithuania, Vilnius, where I haven't lived for quite many years by now, as I lived in many different countries such Norway, UK, Turkey, and now just over 1 year ago I have moved here to Prague together with my Czech husband, and now I have two kids. One is Oscar, who's almost 2.5 years old, and another one is Charlie, who's just turned 6 weeks today. So first things first, since I found out that I'm pregnant, naturally I started researching and gathering all the information about all the hospitals here in Prague and around Prague, because I really wanted to make sure that I don't do some major mistake and I choose the right hospital to have a possibly positive birthing experience. So I was researching loads about all the Prague hospitals and nearby hospitals here around Prague to collect as much possible information about what's the conditions like there, what's the care there like there, how do they take care of the newborns, how do they take care of the mom, how do they organize things around the postpartum period, which was quite important for me because the first time around I gave birth in Oxford, UK, and I had a little bit of horrible experience. Okay, not a little bit, it was fully horrific experience. I believe I got quite traumatized after that experience, and it took me a good 1 year to recover both mentally and physically after my horrible experiences. So naturally this time around I want to make sure that I don't do mistake and I pick the right hospital. So I came across this little private hospital called Nemocnice, Neratovice, and what I liked about it, so I really love the idea that the hospital is having quite flexible, personalized approach, and some staff members speaks English, and that there's quite a many birthing options. It looks like the hospital supports mom to be able to choose her birthing positions, and the mom has to say how you want to treat your newborn baby. So like in general the hospital is quite flexible and natural, has this flexible and natural approach. So yeah, I was pretty much happy about my choice, and I spoke with many other ladies who were really happy with their experiences in there and had many positive birthing experiences there. So I thought, let's give it a try. So to give you a little bit of the background information, as my first birth was quite complicated, the second time around I had a chance here to choose to be induced instead of waiting for my natural labor to kick in. So after my discussion with a doctor, I have decided to be induced at 38 weeks, and I really liked about Neratovice Hospital is that they are quite flexible with me. So since I said that I would really prefer to stay in the private room, we booked the induction day for 2nd of August, and we made a deal that if there is no room available at the time, we'll just postpone my induction. On the day, I phoned in the hospital to check whether they have any available rooms. Unfortunately, everything was taken. The hospital said they would give me an update in 2 hours. So they called me 2 hours later, still everything is booked, no women got discharged in the meanwhile. Then again, a couple of hours later, the hospital called and they said that in 1 hour there's gonna be one private room available. So apparently I got really excited because I was literally praying for a private room. And so we got ready with my husband, prepared ourselves, and shortly after we left to the hospital. Once we have arrived to the hospital, I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't really have to wait in any sort of the queue at all. Once we went upstairs to the maternity ward, the nurse met me and straight away took me to the first appointment with the nurse who hooked up all the cables around my belly to check if the baby's okay, to check if I'm okay. And in the meanwhile, while I was being checked up, she was filling all the papers, so I didn't really have to worry about the paperwork myself. Regarding to my induction, once I had an appointment with my doctor, she was deciding on the best induction way. So the first thing, she tried to insert this little balloon inside of my cervix, which was supposed to manually make the cervix dilate. But oh gosh, it was so painful. I was literally crying. And once the doctor saw my reactions, she said, okay, apparently that's not a good way, let me try some other induction way, because it's not supposed to be that painful, every woman reacts differently, so this way is not working for you and let's find something else. So then she gave me this prostaglandin pill to the cervix, and the pill was supposed to start the natural hormones, to release the natural hormones which supposed to kick in my contractions. After that, they took me to my room, which is above standard. That means it's a private room where I can stay, where my birthing partner can stay. In this case, it was my husband. And the room looked quite lovely, actually much better than the rest of maternity ward. It was, you could see that it was recently renovated, it was nice wallpapers on the wall, a nice decent hospital bed, then another bed for my partner to sleep in. There was an aircon, there was a fridge, and basically everything what you might need during your hospital stay. And as well the private bathroom. So I was really happy to see the conditions, to see the room, and the nurse left us there. And since then, I really felt like the whole hospital stay, and after that I could really feel that the whole hospital stay I was really looked after, because the first day, perhaps every 2 hours, some different staff member would be coming into my room, checking on me, checking whether everything's okay, doing different sort of tests for me and for my baby. So I just felt, wow, the hospital is definitely not understaffed or anything like that, even though it was the summertime. And I felt like, wow, compared to my Oxford hospital experience, I was straight away impressed by conditions, by how caring is the staff, and just by the hospital flexibility. In total, my induction took 3 days, which was quite a long way to wait through, but I cannot really complain, because I have to say that hospital bed, first of all, was super comfortable. Hospital food was, well, not the restaurant food, but pretty good. Like, get used to getting much of bread, rollicks and spread, but from time to time I would get some healthy desserts, fruit, veggies and similar things, so you can survive on that food. Well, I don't know, is it just because I got this private room, or do hospital staff treat each and every woman like that? But I really felt so highly respected there and so highly taken care of. Like, it was really impressive for me, especially comparing my English experience, where I would feel that I'm just waiting for hours and hours and nothing is happening and no one cares, but I'm in excruciating pain. So having this experience in Prague, for me it was such an amazing experience. Those 3 days while waiting for my induction to kick in, I felt more like I'm in some I was joking, but it feels more like a spa stay rather than a hospital stay. So my induction, it took 3 days, and normally I think it takes from few hours to 3 days. So for the first 2 days nothing was really happening. The cervix was not dilating, I was stuck at 2 centimeters. And so I was getting a little bit disappointed, and by that time a little bit impatient as well, because of course I just couldn't wait to give birth and I couldn't wait to see my little boy Charlie. but nothing whatsoever was happening, so it was really starting to affect me a little bit mentally, like what's wrong with me, why nothing is going on. And each time I asked doctors, so what's the plan, how long are we gonna wait? And the doctors would just say, well, you're just 38 weeks, so it's not natural. The day when I gave birth, it started like normal, like usual, nothing is going on, zero process. At 5 in the morning, a nurse came to my room to do my CTG, to monitor the baby and to monitor me. She checked my temperature, my pressure, and gave me one more prostaglandin pill. And then, from 9 o'clock in the morning, I finally started feeling something. And by something, I mean I went to the room to do my CTG, which is when we monitor the baby and my urine contractions. So while I was spending those 20 minutes in the room being monitored, I started feeling some horrible contractions. I was not even sure it's contractions because it felt very different from the way how my contractions felt the first time around when I was pregnant. So I kept asking nurses, I was just saying, oh my God, I'm in so much of pain. Is this contractions or is this something else? Then the nurse would just look at the screen and say, I don't see any contractions. Must be just some side effect from the pills. So you can imagine that I didn't like this kind of answer, and I was thinking like, oh no, why nothing is happening, why nothing is progressing, and what is this horrible pain happening? But I don't know what was happening, whether it was contractions or something else, but I started timing them. So apparently it was contractions. I started timing them and they were 3.5 minutes apart, and they were lasting from 9 in the morning until 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I was having these horrible contractions, very painful. But each time if I would ask nurse whether this is labor, they would say, no, we cannot see any contractions on the screen. So you can imagine what a mixed feelings I had in my head, because the nurse is saying she cannot see any contractions in the screen, but hey, I'm feeling every 2 to 3 minutes this horrible contractions inside of me. So what happened then? At 2 o'clock, I got my last and 7th prostaglandin pill. The doctor checked me. They checked the progress. I was still just at 2 centimeters. My cervix was not dilating. And so you can imagine that I was quite disappointed. Nothing is going on. I went back to my room where my husband was waiting for me. And all disappointed, I was just like, oh, nothing is happening. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just lay down to my bed, started texting to my mom, saying something like, hey mom, I'm so disappointed, there's no action, nothing's going on. And literally, just as I was typing this message to my mom, I feel this warm gush of water down there. And then I just look at my husband and I said, I think I just peed myself. And then I think in my head, wait, that's what all the pregnant women says when they have their water breaks. And then I think, oh no, actually my water just broke. And then my husband just stood up, came to my bed, and he was like, high five, finally some action. So we got really excited that something is definitely going on, because as soon as I know, once your water breaks, the contractions are supposed to be really strong and really intense, and soon after, you're supposed to give birth. So I clicked the button on the wall to call the nurse. She came by, I told what happened, and she was like, oh, okay, so we are moving forward, now you can just relax, you can take shower and wait for the labor to come, wait for the contractions to intensify. But funnily enough, since my water broke, suddenly all the contractions just stopped. I could not feel anything. Suddenly I was in no pain, just back to normal. I was just having this long, relaxing shower, washing my hair, listening to music. And let me check at the timeline because now the action will will start. So I took shower, my hair was still wet and everything. It was just let me have a look. So when my water broke 2:30 in the afternoon, and then 1 hour later, I think around 1 hour later, I started having these really intense contractions, like 1 minute apart, 1 or 2 minutes apart, 1 minute long, which I could barely stand. And then I was just laying in my bed, holding by the bedside, screaming to the pillow or trying to breathe through my contractions while my husband was supporting me in my room. And I remember I was just saying to my husband, please call the doctor, I cannot take this, I need epidural. And the funny thing is I was screaming for epidural even though no one could confirm that I'm in labor, because the nurses said that this is not even contractions, this is just some side effects from the pill which they gave me, because they couldn't see contractions in the screen. So everyone thinks I'm not even in the labor, but I'm laying in my bed and begging for epidural. So my husband came to call the doctor, and it was a really bad time because it was the handover between two doctors. So it took 20 minutes until the doctor came in, and I was all in excruciating pain, just breathing through my contractions. And the doctor was so nice, friendly and chill. He just looked at me and he's like, all right, so let's go to my room. I will check if there is any progress. Because I think no one really believed I'm in the active labor and that I'm about to give birth soon. I didn't even know that. But all I knew is that I'm having these frequent painful contractions, which is not showing for some reason on the screen. And so the doctor checked me at around 3:30 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and he invited me to his room. But imagine the situation. My contractions are like 1 minute or 2 minutes apart. So once the doctor said, please come to my room, I said something like, okay, but we have just 1 minute, let's run. And then once one contraction was over, I literally started running through the corridor to his room because I was afraid that another contraction will start and I will not be able to do anything or to walk or to function at all. So my next contraction started in the middle of the corridor. I could not reach the doctor's cabinet. So I was breathing through my next contraction. It was really horrible. But the nurse was so sweet. She was putting her hand on the lower back, making some pressure, which helps from the pain. And she was so sweet and caring, like if she would be my personal doula or something like that. And so then I came to the doctor's room, and it was like a tragic comedy. So the doctor says, okay, can you please sit on this chair so that I can check if there is any progress. And at that point I was like a wild animal. I just wanted to knee down on the floor. I couldn't really control my body because I was literally just ready to give birth there. I said, well, I cannot lay down on that chair. I said, all I can do, I can just kneel down on the floor. Then the nurse was helping for me to stand up. I somehow lay down on the nearest bed. The doctor checked me, and his jaw almost dropped because he was like, it's time to go to the delivery room. You're between 8 and 9 centimeters dilated. And you're supposed to give birth once you're 10 centimeters dilated. And just 2 hours back, they said that I'm still at 2 centimeters, there's no progress, nothing's happening. So you can imagine the shock on everyone's face, the shock on my face. Like on one hand, I was really happy that I have progressed suddenly in 2 hours so much that I'm ready to deliver the baby. But on the other hand, I was like, no, I cannot get my epidural. So the doctor says, okay, it's time to go to the delivery room. everyone's quickly getting ready, and so that means that I cannot have any kind of strong painkillers or epidural because it's almost time to deliver for me. So they take me to the room, and it was, even though it's now a little bit hard to remember everything because of that levels of my pain, but the nice thing was that there was many different tools which helps for women to give birth, like a bouncing ball or some carpet or the chair or the bed. Like basically you can choose any way you want to give birth, anything that feels good or comfortable or natural for you. You just follow your body and you give birth in that way. So I just went on all my fours on the carpet with the bouncing ball, and it was very interesting because I could feel so much of pain, but that pain gradually went to some sort of pressure. And I remember I kept saying to the nurse, I'm saying, oh my god, I feel so much of pressure, I feel the head there, I think I'll be giving birth now. And we're just saying, oh, just having contractions, just breathe for them, it's okay. And a few minutes after this conversation, I just thought, okay, I'll just try to change position, I'll try to lay down on the chair, on the bed. And whilst I was slowly changing my position, the head was out. So suddenly more nurses ran to the room and we were like, the head is out. And we said, okay, now be ready to push with the next contraction. Just push as hard as you can. And I think with the next 1 or 2 contractions, I gave birth. So the moment when they took out the baby, I just looked at my husband and I said, wow, I just don't feel anything anymore. I just don't feel any pain. And I was just hugging my baby boy, looking at him, and I thought, wow, I just literally feel no pain. What's going on? But of course, I teared a little bit, so they had to stitch me up, which was really painful that moment, but it just took some minutes. It was soon over. We stayed 2 hours with the baby in the room, and 2 hours later, I was back in my room with my husband while the doctors were doing checkups on the baby, and I was so happy. I was starving. We ordered some burgers, we were giggling, we were sitting in the room, and we were like, oh wow, can you believe that I just gave birth 2 hours ago? Because I felt like it was not me. I felt like it was someone else who was giving birth. Like, it was incredible feeling. Like, it was very, very intense, but very short, and even though it was painful and everything, I just remembered all of the smile on my face. And also, what I would like to mention, I really like the fact that there in the hospital Neratovice, they have this room where if you are tired or overwhelmed or you just need to take a shower or some hours for yourself, you can take a baby, bring it to that room, and there's always staff who can look after and take care of your baby. So in the meanwhile, you can rest, you can sleep, you can take shower. I actually didn't use that at all, but for me, just knowing that there is such a possibility, it put such an ease on my mind, because the first time around when I was giving birth in Oxford, it was really hard for me to stay 3 days in a row with my baby because he was just screaming non-stop. I couldn't take shower. I almost couldn't go to the toilet. I was just literally running and running back because the baby would be screaming non-stop. So for me, it was really nice to know that if you need help, they can just, you can just leave your baby there, he'll be fully taken care of, and yeah, there is no problem whatsoever. Just another thing to keep in mind, that once you are hospitalized, once you're admitted to a maternity ward, you cannot actually leave the floor, you cannot leave the maternity ward. So there's some local bakery and these machines where you can buy some food or some bars or some hot chocolate or something like that, but you cannot actually leave the maternity ward, so only your partner who comes to visit you can buy it on the way and bring it for you to the ward, because otherwise you're not able to physically get there. So that's a little bit of the downside, but that's the rules in the hospital. And another thing which I would like to mention is I read many comments about that it gets really, really hot there during the summer, especially in the shared rooms where there is many women. But I have to say that the private rooms, they have air cons, and blinds on the window, so you can really make it dark, make it cool. So it's really comfortable, so it's worth having private room. Just if you can, choose a private room. It's not always possible, but if you can get one, just get one. Actually, you do not need to pack too much of things with yourself, because everything baby related, they provide everything. So baby diapers, baby clothes, any diaper rash creams, socks, hats, muslin clubs, they provide everything for the baby during your stay. But so just you can have one baby outfit once you go home, or unless you want to take some cute pictures with the baby, but they provide everything else, so you do not have to worry that you'll run out of baby clothes or that you do not have some cream or anything like that. And also for women, they provide you with pads, we always in the bathroom. Alright, so this is it. That was my birthing story in Prague, in Nemocnice, Neratovice. And if you guys like the video, please click like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my future videos. Bye!